to come and speak to this. Oh, and Boyd. Great, I'll allow you to speak to the report. Did you, Mayor Major, want to speak first?
I've asked Mary to get this report to F&P in response to the letter from Abby that asked the council for some direction. We have worked closely with CCHL through the workshops to better understand their current position and the big challenges they face. And I do agree with what's been said down the end of the table. If we wouldn't be able to put it out there while we were doing it, but if we had, and we probably will, people will have a better idea of what we were up against when we were making these decisions. They are keen to progress a business case for the new active portfolio manager operating model for us to consider. I accept staff advice that we do this outside and after the LTP. So the real question is whether we get CCHL to progress with the business case. Personally, I think we should, but I understand there are views on both sides. So it is good to discuss it formally today. My view is that we should give direction today by way of a decision. And with that, I will move items 1 to 5 and 6A, please. Thank you.
Right, okay. Oh, yes.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Great. Okay, so we'll just use my mic. Great.
Go now.
Okay. Very much. Look, we are taking the paper as read and want to acknowledge that it is a decision of council whether you want to progress as your preferred option for consultation, active portfolio management or enhanced status quo. You've had a series of presentations about this, and that will be your decision. However, staff's primary concern and advice today is about the process and particularly the legal requirements for inclusion in the LTP and the legal requirements regarding consultation. So I'm going to hand over to Helen White, who's been working with our independent legal advisors around the legal requirements, and then we are open for questions.
Yes, thank you, Mary. I just want to confirm it is the advice before you today that the timing that Christchurch City Holdings Limited are currently working to from the 2022 resolution of this committee, it does not now give sufficient time for us to be able to work through the legal steps that are required in the Local Government Act. So it is a key objective for all of us to ensure that when the long-term plan is adopted next year, it is done in a procedurally robust manner. That is because even should the business case proceed and that information is provided to the council by CCHL, this information will need to be evaluated against the Local Government Act requirements. It may also mean that specialist commercial advice is required to advise the council at that time. It could be that some aspects within that business case require further clarification or further discussion. In addition, the Local Government Act does require that there's an audit sign-off to the draft. And logistically, this means it is no longer practicable for us as your advisors to recommend that any proposal, if adopted by the council, is contained within the draft long-term plan. The most robust process would be for any proposal to change the operating model of CCHL to do this separately via a special consultative process at another time.
Great, thank you. So we've got questions. Councillor McClellan.
Thanks for that really clear advice. Are you able to go into detail about the amount of money spent thus far progressing the business case and the quantum of money involved with a special consultative procedure and everything that would go with it? I understand, we're talking ballpark figures, but...
So I don't have the details of the level of money, but it's been a significant investment so far. and I don't want to give the figure, but I'd be wrong, but I anticipated that's over $1 million between CCHL and Christchurch City Council. Special consultative procedure, can't give a ballpark about that, but we would want to do some early engagement and education so the community can actually actively participate in that special consultative procedure rather than just a single document going out. So that, but that can be done with internal resourcing.
Thank you for that information. Am I right in thinking if we've spent $1 million as a ballpark figure thus far?
Well, we can certainly supply. I haven't got that information.
No,
I had. I can certainly supply that information.
I think the words significant are enough really for my needs. But am I right in thinking there would be a significant additional investment required to get us to a stage to consult on the active portfolio management?
There would be further investment, yes, required. Both by CCHL to finish their work and for us potentially to get some advice from independent parties and review of that documentation to be able to provide you with appropriate advice and to be able to make sure it was robust enough to go out to consultation.
Right. So the decision today doesn't come cheap if we decide to progress.
No, but I can't give you the quantum. Sorry. I can get you that information. We can do an estimate of it, but I can't give you that today. Sorry.
Councillor Scandra.
Yeah, just to clarify, if 6B were not passed, the special consultative procedure, the timing of that would be the council's decision. So we could insist on good separation from the LTP to that process, so there is adequate time for all residents of Christchurch to obtain and read all the information and absorb.
Yes, so any decision to consult is council's decision. Any proposal would have to be council's proposal. It's not CCHL's proposal. By the time you're consulting, it has to be your proposal that you can speak to and answer. So, and certainly that our advice is not to include it in the LTP.
Yes.
And then you can decide if and when you want to consult on any option you want to adopt and go out for consultation.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Henstock.
Thank you, Mary and Helen. Specifically, thank you to you, Helen, for spelling out the risks associated with proceeding under the long-term plan. Mary, my question's for you, and it's a follow-on from Councillor McLennan down there around the funds required to complete. I note that you used the word significant funds had been expended so far, but on the question of whether additional funds required to complete, whether it was significant funds, you simply said that it was going to be funds required. We heard from CCHL yesterday that they've almost nearly completed the works, and that they would be ready to have the information for us by the end of January. So can you confirm that there is further funds required, but to our mind it's not significant and they're almost there?
So, yeah, the funds that may be required, which I said may be required, would be on our side when we receive that information to get the value strategy isn't completed yet. There's more work that we may need to review when we see that to make sure we can give you good advice for the council to adopt the proposition and proposal, and then it's good advice in terms of consultation. So CCHL did advise yesterday that they were almost completed with their proposal, but we haven't reviewed that, we haven't seen it, we don't know whether it would meet requirements.
And to confirm that we've always known that this would need to be consulted on, so it's nothing new that we have to go out and consult. And when we as a council agreed to this in December of last year, it was intended that this would happen.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Councillor Keown?
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether mine's to the chair or to potentially Helen, but given that we have two members today who are councillors that can't partake in the vote, but sit on CCHL, and of everyone at the table that's about to vote know the most about CCHL, are they allowed to speak in the debate or speak to the item but not vote?
My advice is that They are here to answer questions, to clarify or provide any information to you, but they cannot participate in the debate or vote because they are conflicted. They have roles that compete, which cannot be resolved. So my advice is they may answer questions but not participate.
So doesn't that show a clear flaw in our system that when we appoint board members from council to be part of an organisation, then when we're making a decision on that organisation, they cannot partake? I mean, that's just a broken system.
Is that
not?
Question relevant for today's?
Very relevant.
I don't think so.
Otherwise, why have councillors on these boards?
We've had a vote on this a year ago, and we could have debated it then. So I've got a question from Councillor McClellan.
Me so quickly. Hate to labour this point, but the putting aside the costs that we don't yet know in terms of reviewing whatever comes from the business, yet uncompleted business case from CCHL, all those external costs, putting that aside, purely just the cost of a special consultative procedure, do we have an idea really in terms of what that costs the organisation?
I'm looking across at Comsperson. No, we don't, but we could scope that out.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just interested if we stopped the business case work, could we reallocate that resource to addressing the single biggest cost that we're facing in terms of the te kaha in the stadium? Because it seems ironic that all this work's being done to basically plug the funding gap for the new stadium, and yet we're not spending
Councillor
any.
Johansson, I don't think that's relevant again for the
Well, how can we get
decision
resource if we agree to stop this process?
It's relevant.
If we agree to stop this process now and we've saved ourselves some additional resource, how can we put that resource into addressing the thing that is causing us the biggest single cost?
I don't think that's a question for the staff, that's a question for us as a council.
That would have to come back for a formal decision of council. We can't reallocate CCHL funding, for example, but any funding from council would need to come back to be reallocated to a different cost centre, would need to come back to council for a decision.
I had two questions. So yesterday we had CCHL come in to speak to council and to answer questions about where they're up to, and that was filmed, and I was just wondering if that will be going public at some stage, if it hasn't already.
Yes, it is. It is live. It went up live on last night, and we've now also put a link to it from the Newsline story page.
Great, thank you. And the second question I had stemmed from that. So during there were statements from the chair of CCHL saying that they had difficulty talking with management of this organisation over the last 3 to 4 weeks. I was just wondering if you could speak to that, especially in light of your email that you've sent to us.
Yes, happy to speak to that. That is not correct from our perspective. So over the last 3 weeks, we have had a total of 23 interactions with CCHL. With that, that's included 2 meetings. It's included 5 phone conversations and a array of email exchanges. We gave them a copy of the draft report for a full day to comment on and provide any feedback on, and we have made ourselves available. We haven't had any requests for meetings that we have turned down, but we have also made a further request to them, and they've agreed to for a meeting which was prior to that comment on Monday, so we know how we're going to progress this together. So no, we have had in 3 weeks over 23 interactions with them, including meetings and phone calls.
Great, thank you, Mary. Does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Just on what consultation would look like, can you please confirm that if 6A did not proceed, that there would still end up a consultation on status quo and enhanced status quo?
That would be a choice of council.
If council
if
decided,
they
yep.
wanted to consult the public on what enhanced status quo looked like. It would not need a special consultative procedure.
Okay.
If you did decide to consult, you could do it as a public consultation engagement around what that might look like. But
Understood.
under that one, you are not removing strategic assets off the strategic asset register.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Keown?
Why would we consult on enhanced status quo?
You may choose to consult, and you may choose to consult to ask the public what they want from their assets, what they want them to look like. It would be a choice. You would not need to do it, but you could choose to engage with the public.
And at that point, would the public know about all of the stuff that we've been told so far?
Yes, they could. Yes.
They could
It
or they would?
yeah, well, if you choose to engage with the public,
Yeah.
you would probably want to engage with them with the full information.
So what would happen then if the public come back and said, now that we know all that you know, they might want a bigger conversation? Then what happens?
At that point, if you wanted to remove assets and strategic assets in their strategy, you would need to do an SCP, Special Consultative Procedure. And
Right.
we often do two-stage consultations here. We do early engagement and ask the people of Christchurch what they want, and then develop a proposal that requires formal consultation. Do you want to-
If I could just add, the Local Government Act expressly provides for that situation, that you may amend your long-term plan at another time, not just within your usual 3-year cycle. That's expressly provided for just that sort of situation, should that be what the council wishes to propose.
Okay, it looks like we've come to the end of questions. Oh, Councillor Scandrett.
Sorry. So in point 4, notes that Christchurch City Holdings Limited has already begun implementation of the enhanced status quo operating model following the portfolio review. So what would happen if a councillor chose to support down to 4 and then not support 5 and 6? What would be the outcome then? It seems that would be following what Councillor Moore has been asking or asked.
I think the CCHL are asking for some clear guidance. So to stop at 4 and leaving them in limbo, I think would be difficult because you still have the resolution of 7th of December sitting there. So you need to, if you wanted to stop at that point, you probably would need to decide to revoke or overturn that, or just change that decision or supersede that decision of 7th of December 2022.
Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Mary. This is a follow-up to Councillor Moore's question around if council went with 6B, which is the status quo, enhanced status quo. What would be the process to look at consulting on aspects of that? Would that be something that we would need to move today?
No, we would come back with advice around that.
Okay.
Councillor Johansson.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand between the two different options that CCHL's put forward, which is the enhanced status quo and the active portfolio manager. But I'm just trying to understand where the magic money comes from in option 2.5. How do they just magically get a whole bunch of extra money by taking on?
That is something that would need to come back in their business case. So we can't speak to that. So that would come back in their business case, and then the advice that we would give you at that stage. But we can't answer that because we haven't seen the
But if we agreed to look at active portfolio management, is it correct that my understanding is that means that all of the assets in CCHL currently owned by the council's strategic assets would be up for sale?
I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, councillor. My understanding is that they would come out of the listing of being a strategic asset, and there would be perhaps different ways of how things would be sold. So part of what we'd be expecting to see in a full business case would be those sorts of details. What sort of restrictions would be around any sales? what would need to come back to council for approval, what sort of investments would fit within that framework. But this is a level of detail we haven't yet seen, so we're not able to evaluate and advise you on the advantages or disadvantages of that option.
Right, but my understanding from the briefing yesterday that CCHL's proposal is that we delist all of our strategic assets as a city, and then they have the flexibility about what they choose to do with them to get the magic money.
That's our understanding of what would be in the business case, but there would be more information within the business case around the parameters for what that would look like. But we don't have that information.
And before they sold off an asset, if we delisted, would we have any understanding of what they would be doing with that money in terms of finding the additional money that they've
As
said that they
Helen
could get?
that level of detail will come back in we're assuming would be in the business case, but we don't have that level of detail.
Right, okay.
Councillor McClellan.
Thanks. Mary, you mentioned about a two-stage, it's common for us to do a two-stage consultation process. If we were to do this process all over again, heaven forbid, but if we were, is it your view that the better way to do it would be to consult with the public first on what they'd like, more broadly, and before we worked up a detailed business case on active portfolio management?
Look, I haven't been involved in this process until the last 3 weeks, so I can't comment and evaluate the process at all. But I can say what I said going forward is that potentially the ideal scenario would be to have a conversation and engagement with the community and then decide what the proposal and proposition was, and then go to consultation.
So engagement with people first, then spend a whole bunch of money working up a specific option before you consult on that specific option. Okay.
Go.
Well, I think we may have come to the end of the questions this time round. All right, so we'll lead. Thank you for that. So we'll now, we'll lead into some debate. Would you like to speak first, Mayor Major?
Thank you, Chair. Got a couple of things to say. Only that time. For years, Christchurch City Council has been the last cab off the rank as far as dividends from CCHL were concerned. We always got what was left over. It was decided at the last council, to proceed with the investigation of how to make Christchurch City Holdings better. A strategic review, 30 years since it was born. And it came out that we were averaging a 2% return over the 30 years per annum. This is not great. Finishing the work so the public can tell us what they want from their companies is very important. When the public see what we saw in our meetings, which they will, it will become clear as to why we need to do this ASAP. We work closely with Christchurch City Holdings through workshops to better understand their current position and the big challenges they face. The biggest of these is the debt they carry, especially the near $500 million that we threw on top of them for the super dividend after the earthquake. They are keen to progress a business case for a new active portfolio manager operating model for us to consider. I accept that the staff advice we need to do this outside and after the LTP, but I think we should finish this process by seeing their final business case and making an informed decision. But this is a significant process, and I think we need to make that decision collectively today. Is there an appetite to carry on working on the business case, or do we just wrap it up? If we wrap it up, then there is still a clear expectation on CCL from the council that we want them to continue the enhanced status quo approach. Now, don't forget when they told us the other day, which people don't know, which they will find out, if we keep going with this status quo approach, they will hit the wall in 2028 and be sitting here pleading for money from us, and we'll have to have a fire sale and get rid of stuff. I want a better return and want CCHL to push the companies harder to improve returns. I want to thank Abby and Paul and the CCHL team for their hard work. They're building a good track record of delivery, and it will only improve on time. It is far better than what we have had in the past. But for me personally, I want to hear the case and will vote to support developing this business case. Sometimes people always come to us with a problem. We get it a lot. We've got a problem, council, fix it. What we have got here with CCHL, they've come to us with a problem, but they're offering a solution how we can all work together with the public to get out of this bit of a bind that we're in. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Cotter.
Oh, kia ora. Look, this
Deputy
has
Mayor.
actually
Sorry.
this has actually been a very good learning process. We've certainly lifted the lid on how CCHL operates. The Northington report has made several recommendations that I fully support. Firstly, that they noted that CCHL reporting to this council needs to be more regular, more thorough, more robust. Secondly, that this council instructions to CCHL through our letter of expectation be clearer and stronger. Thirdly, that CCHL requires stronger oversight of their subsidiaries. They have acknowledged that the council has been the last cab off the rank, as the Mayor alluded to, when it comes to its dividends. And fourthly, that the City Council and CCHL have a closer and more open relationship. These are all sensible and logical, but sadly it has not been the state of affairs to date. CCHL's active management model is asking us to give them autonomy, flexibility over the portfolio, so they can, I quote, allow co-investment, recycle shares, allow dilution, create liquid assets. All of this involves selling portions of the portfolio, no matter what creative wording is used, selling off the silver, or even a portion of a silver tea set. It's not quite so attractive without the milk jug. So once this gate is open, it would be very, very difficult to close and virtually impossible to reverse. We instructed CCHL to conduct a strategic review, and I want to thank them for the work they've done to date. They have revealed to us that they can improve the management such that they can actually deliver to the council an increased dividend to the tune of 20 million a year. It's 200 million over 10 years. And they've labelled this the enhanced status quo, and that's fantastic. I'd like to call it the real status quo. In Resolution 4 up there notes that CCHL has already begun implementation. That's also fantastic. So with the adoption of the Northington's recommendations of closer oversight and relationships, plus the implementation of the enhanced status quo, I'm asking councillors to support 6B and request CCHL to cease the work on the active portfolio management business case. Don't throw any more time and resource at this. The recommendation of the business case would allow them autonomy over the silver to tinker, dilute, sell off bits and pieces. We, as elected members, have the mandate and responsibility to protect and control these assets by exerting clear oversight. And we do this by exerting clear oversight and instruction to CCHL, not by handing control to CCHL. This council must retain control. Please vote and support 6B, fellow councillors. It's an important decision today. Thank you.
Councillor Henstock.
Thank you, Chair. The decision today is quite simply about finishing the work that we have asked CCHL to do. We asked for their professional commercial advice, and it's prudent that we complete this. They told us yesterday that they are nearly there. So, to my mind, it defies logic to throw this in the bin now. You've heard our senior officers today say, in response to some of the questions, that actually we need more information. That's the information that the full business case will give us. We need that information in order to properly consider this and do due diligence on the issue. So let's get it. The companies that we're talking about, they belong to the ratepayers of Christchurch, and it's the ratepayers of Christchurch that need the detailed business case information too. So it's entirely appropriate that we complete the work, and then we ask the public with the full suite of information about how they want to see their companies managed. Now, when it comes to making the final decision on the substantive issue, we will need to ask ourselves, have we got all of the information before us, the necessary information, and have we engaged in a fair and a democratic process? So the resolutions that we've got up there today, and particularly for 6A, that allows us to do that. And I'm really pleased to hear from the presenters this morning that they want us to look to the future. They want us to open up the information and to share it. They don't want us behind closed doors, and they want us to ask the public for their views. Now, that's the responsible thing for all of us to do as elected members, to complete the process, let the public decide. Now, let's be really clear that the net effect of this decision substantively is nearly $500 million. I'm going to say that again. That's $500 million benefit to the ratepayers of Christchurch. It's $500 million that we will have the opportunity to invest in future generations of our city. It is quite possibly the most significant decision that we as elected members are going to have to make this term. And it's entirely appropriate that we engage in a very robust and a consultative, special consultative procedure to do this properly and to give it full diligence. It's entirely undemocratic to not do that.
Thank you. Councillor Fields.
All right, just to kick things off, can we just do a quick show of hands for anybody who campaigned for their council seat supporting asset sales? So I didn't think so, but I campaigned on a platform of not selling assets. I was very clear on that, as was the gentleman to my left here, with the greatest of respect. We use the term assets. It's a positive word. Isn't an asset something you want? We don't talk about selling liabilities, although I can think of a few that we have. But these are just words. They don't speak to what's at the heart of it, and what that is the people of Christchurch. It is personal. One of our strategic assets happens to be in the Banks Peninsula Ward. No prize for guessing what that is. Port means a hell of a lot to me. I know it intimately. I spent my childhood on the wharves because it was our community. My father spent the vast majority of his working life in the port. My grandfather the same, my great-grandfather the same. My neighbours work in the port. The people I went to primary school work in the port. People I went to secondary school with work in the port. My friends, my whānau. Jared Loader over there, who I grew up with, works in the port. I hold their legacy with me every day as I represent the people of Littleton and Banks Peninsula. I represent not those who just live there now, but the generations past and still to come. How long have I got? The Port of Littleton is not just an asset to trade, to buy or sell. It isn't a plaything for people to make short-term decisions about. Do we want to put control of our assets in the hands of people who, for them, the port is just a place to draw a salary, to advance a career, to flick off when it suits your career? Do we want the control of our port given to those whose whakapapa is not in the port? What gives us the right to make decisions like this without the buy-in of the people who work there or the community that has lived and loved and served the Port of Littleton? Littleton. Nobody in this room campaigned on a platform of asset sales. Is anybody seriously sending our city down a path that they had never mapped out when they asked our communities to vote for them? Are we being told that we should believe people who never told us what their plans were? If we can't believe them on that, what else can we believe them on? And I want to believe, because guess what? Christchurch is a city that's made good decisions in the time before the earthquake and since. That's why our city is thriving. That's why people want to move here. That's why we are becoming the events capital of New Zealand. That's why SailGP announced this morning that they're coming to Christchurch. So please, I beg my fellow councillors to make a good decision, the right decision, and make a commitment to work with our assets and keep them, enhance them, and work with our communities to do what's right for them. Nobody's saying we shouldn't be doing better with our assets. Almost finished, Mel. And we can do that anytime. We can give that direction anytime. Anytime. There is no compelling reason why we need to advance this business case as proposed today in 6A. We need to cease further development of this business case, and that is why I'll support 6B.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe we around this table have a collection of wise heads. We've all been elected by our people as able to think. It came as a surprise to me when I was elected and was suddenly thrown into this CCHL strategic review. But I think each of us have embraced that process. We've learnt a lot from that process. And at the very least, we've allowed CCHL to revive itself to the position where it's enhancing the status quo. That's been a very positive thing. But I think we around this table owe it to our constituents and the people of Christchurch, who are the owners of our assets through CCHL, to actually finish off the process that we've all embarked on in good faith. I would be horrified if today we pulled the plug and said, let's bury our heads in the sand and not finish the due diligence that we've begun. I would really hope that we'd have enough common sense and wisdom to say the process must be finished. It is not simply asset sales as colleagues are trying to label it. Yes, there might be an element of that down the track to re-gear, but listen people, do you want to keep paying higher rates? Because if our companies can't deliver us good dividends, your rates go up. So please allow the people around this table to allow this process to be finished so that we can bring it to you, the people, so that you can tell us what to do. Yeah, you're here, but you're a few. There are a whole lot more out there that are not here. So please allow all of the people of Christchurch to have a say in this, not just yourselves. We owe it to the people of Christchurch to finish this process, to put together the special consultative process and go out to them next year and to allow them to tell us exactly what to do with their assets. They're not our assets. We are simply here to be good stewards and managers of their assets and to try and get the best dividend we can for this city, to lower the rates to the point where people don't have to be absolutely crippled by rates increases going forward. Have you not any idea the trouble that this council and this city is in? The process we're in has the opportunity to help resolve a lot of the problems that we're finding ourselves in. So please, around this table today, can we please have enough wisdom and gumption to finish this process? We were all elected by the same constituency of Christchurch. We all swore the same oath. I think the wisdom that we bring to this table needs to come to the fore today. And please stand up for the people of Christchurch and allow us to put it into their hands to tell us what to do going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, the facts are our council raises money to do its work through rates, borrowing, or money that our businesses through CCHL make. And what I'm concerned about most is the fact that CCHL debt is $2.3 billion, that council debt is $1.6 billion, that in the last term our council took, and as Gary said, we borrowed in advance $440 million. Next year, something like 3 to 4% of our rates increase will be just to pay for that debt. Gary said that, we shouldn't have briefings behind closed doors, that we should bring this out into the open, and he's totally right. I think it needs to come out into the open, and we need to find out what people think. And we can't be afraid of the answers. We're basically all in this together. It's not about us councillors, affiliations, political or otherwise. It's about what is best for our city. My concern is that this council will be back here in a few years, making, in a worse position, making even more tough decisions. And I'd rather see us invest. I'd rather see us grow. We should be selling Canterbury water, pure Canterbury water, to the world. And we can only do that if we have money to invest in that sort of thing. We should be investing in our growing aerospace industry, which is right on our doorstep, which should be worth billions of dollars in future. If we get in at the ground floor with some money, then we can make a huge difference to keeping the rates down in this city. It's good for us to have these conversations, and we should never be afraid of them. We should never be afraid of asking our bosses what they think, and these are the ratepayers, I think at the end of the day, the people will decide where we go with this, and I think that the best thing we can do is continue with this process, finish it off, put it before the people and let them decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan.
Let's be really clear. The decision we're making today is to prepare a business case that will remove a strategic designation protection that guards all our city's assets and will result in CCHL selling down shares in the airport, port and Orion. The public will not be happy if we proceed with the tabled option,
Don't be afraid of asking them, Jake.
because that will allow the CCHL Board of Directors to sell down these assets without consulting on them before making the sale. In fact, a future CCHL board could sell down all the companies, and all we would have to stop them is something called guardrails, and that's all we'd have to discourage them. That's simply a council policy. We depart from council policies all the time. What's the old saying? The road to hell is paved with policy departures. we have some companies that have great capital performance, but as is typical with long-term infrastructure assets, offer modest cash returns. They perform exactly like long-term infrastructure assets. We're a holder of long-term infrastructure assets. That's our core business. We're about as long-term as it's possible to get. To characterise these assets as underperforming is wrong and harmful. Think about the value Orion offered to our city after the earthquake because of that public ownership. I don't want to spend $1 million and take a year to come back to the exact same place we are today. We have support today for the enhanced status quo, so let's get on and do that. We need to give certainty to our organisation, to our companies, and all those who work for them. Actually, certainty to the whole city. Out of this process, we've already got the enhanced status quo. We can have further conversations with CCHL, but on our terms, not consult on their desires. I actually couldn't agree with Councillor McDonald during the briefing we had on Friday, and I certainly wasn't expecting to say that during this debate. Actually, if the appetite isn't there, then we shouldn't spend more and more money progressing down a garden path the community, I believe, don't want us to walk down, and actually never expected us to wander down. It's not just a couple more weeks' work. The asset sales business case alone is a couple of months off, and that's actually being really optimistic, not to mention the time, energy, and money of doing a special consultative procedure. I don't believe, as some would say, we're just around the corner from a piece of work that would fundamentally change the community feeling on this matter. We're actually more than a year and a whole heap of money away. Let's get on with lifting the performance, then talk to the people of Christchurch on the way they want to proceed. If we want to spend money preparing the case for asset sales, then if those of you around the table want to spend money preparing the case for asset sales, then say you're interested in selling. If you're not interested in selling part of the family silver, why would you progress to build the asset sales business case? Don't fool yourself, and don't fool the people of Christchurch. Support option 6B, the foreshadowed.
Councillor Johansson.
Thank you.
Aaron?
The sooner we stop this process, the better. The problem with this process from the start has been that the risks are underestimated to sell off assets and the risks are overestimated to retain the assets. Some of the most objectionable things in the Northington report include a statement that says most of the non-financial benefits that accrue to the city from CCHL assets would in fact continue regardless of actual ownership. That is absolute nonsense. I totally disagree with that statement. A quick Google to some of the things that they would have us do include things like Sydney Airport keeps fattening profit margins from car parking and port workers sacked via text message late at night. The way that private companies treat their workers is abhorrent in some of these examples that we've seen overseas, and some of these same examples are the things that our expensive, well-paid consultants are telling us would have no impact on the people of our city. There's a sign that says people over profit, and I couldn't agree more. The idea, and again to quote from the Northington report, that somehow that the counterfactual is that ratepayers could view the current situation as providing LBC workers with higher wages at the expense of themselves is just totally unacceptable in my view. The idea that the port workers are apparently not ratepayers and that there's a division between the two because our LPC workers are unionised and that getting rid of the union will lead to greater productivity and worse working conditions for people in our city is something that we should reject, and we should reject it strongly, and we should do it today. I don't know how many of you have ever worked for a company that has offered a public service that has been privately contracted in. Well, I have. I worked in a work and income call centre doing student loans to a private temp company that managed the workforce. And I can tell you, people coming to work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, finishing their shift, finding out if they were supposed to be at work at 7 a.m. the next day is not how we should be treating people in our society. And maybe it's okay when you're a young person with no kids and no family commitments. You try being a solo parent with kids and responsibilities, not knowing if you're going to be working until 3 p.m. the day after at 7 a.m. It is impractical and it is impossible and it is an unfair burden that someone should pay. The reality is that the single biggest challenge facing us as a city is the cost of the new rugby stadium. Reducing this financial noose around our neck should be our single biggest focus. Rather than paying expensive consultants to deal with selling off our assets, let's engage them to come up with creative ways of offsetting the thing that is causing us our biggest cost. I am totally against continuing with this business case. Let's get on and address the real things that matter to people and the costs that we're faced with.
Yeah, thanks, Yanni. I'll stand up as well. For the 400,000 people that aren't in the room today, that's the basic population of Christchurch. And for the people that have come in, your views are very, very clear. And you represent, for each one of you sitting here, you represent 10,000 people that aren't here and who deserve to also have a say on this. I just want to say a couple of things. One of them is I do take exception to what you say about someone going to a call centre, working till late at night and then getting up the next morning to go in as well. Welcome to the world of owning a small business. There's thousands of small business owners all over the city, many of them immigrant workers and stuff that own businesses like that do 80, 100 hours a week, and we put their rates up sometimes, and happy to do it in double figures for years to come, and yet this can offset. This potentially, I'm not saying this will, this potentially, once we have a conversation with the public, can offset their rates, the money that they work hard to pay those bills with. So yes, this is a decision that all people of Christchurch should have a say over. We do own assets and we're lucky to inherit those assets from our forefathers. But I, as a person who has a small number of assets that I had to work hard to get as a child from Woolston, grew up, I'm proud of what I own. I'm coming from Woolston, I'm proud of what I own, and I've worked bloody hard for it, and I share it with my family, and I set up my family for a future, just like I want to for the people of Christchurch. So I want CCHL to grow its portfolio, not reduce it. I want us to have better returns for our city, not less returns. We have those assets. They should be working well for the people of Christchurch, not against the people of Christchurch. Work with the port company. The airport's in my ward. I want to see all of these things do better for our people, not worse for our people. And so let's make all of the information that we've received, and it's months and months of it, let's make it public. Let's share it with people. If then the people of Christchurch reject it, then I'm happy to support those people. But they are not getting a say today, and the say today is about taking it forward and letting the people of my ward, the people that I grew up with across the city, have a say in the future of our assets. And that's all I ask for today, is to let democracy speak. Let the people of Christchurch have a say. Finish the process. If they reject it, they reject it. Higher rates, they might be happier with that. But if we can keep their rates down and make living in the city a little easier for every single person, no matter where they come from, I support that, and I hope you do too.
the Northington report was actually a positive document because, as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, there were 4 key things that were actually very good in it. The key there is that we've got to step up as a council and take control and lead from the front, CCHL and our family of assets. I've kind of heard connotations around the room about profit being bad. Profit supports the social fabric of the city. Somewhere, someone or something has to make a profit to support others. And that's a good thing in a community that is active in all aspects. And that is what I support. Being a dropout from school, leaving at 16 illiterate, and getting here at this table, I'm fully aware of my responsibilities to the entire community. I think it is important that we understand those assets better. For me personally, I need to understand them better to look at how we can move them forward for the entire community of our city. The words active portfolio management aren't dirty words. The debate is how we get there. And that is not for today. Because there is no question that whatever is decided today as we move forward, the special consultative procedure, if that is the case, needs to be held right across our city so we better understand what we've got and where we're going. Because all the assets that we're talking about, like our own homes and any business, costs are going up. For a commercial business, insurance alone has gone up over 50%. You have to somehow get that back. There are ways to do that, and that is the debate, but that should be based on better understanding, and that should be out in the public. Absolutely, that information. And if we're going to talk about the different things like Te Kaha, which is not just a rugby stadium, you know, VO, before the earthquake, was the largest employer of students and part-time workers in this city. So that is important for those families that need that second income, although that's overtaxed, and I don't believe in the government's tax policy, but we go there. You know, these are important, but these are things we have to take in right across the board, and we need to do that with better information. So I will leave it there. Thank you.
Look, all we're debating is whether we have a business case developed to inform a conversation with our community, or if we don't. So I've never been wed to a particular path with anything. From what I am aware of, however, I think the active portfolio management proposal has merit. The reason for that is that I believe it will offer significantly greater financial, strategic and social benefit to the people of Christchurch. The proposal aims not only to maintain the Council's long-term investment objectives, but also offers the potential to significantly increase dividends by some $450 million over the next 10 years. It doesn't just focus on financial gains, it demonstrates a strategic vision. It emphasises sustainable, inclusive and affordable economic infrastructure assets, aligning with Council's identified investment objectives. It also introduces an investment policy framework that grants greater investment flexibility to our commercial arm while maintaining the city's oversight and control. I have a decent understanding of corporate governance, business, council and CCHL itself, but the view I hold isn't based on any ideology, but solely from my knowledge and experience in some reasonably relevant areas. 30 years ago, CCHL was pioneering, but I don't believe CCHL as a vehicle now is going to be effective in navigating critical issues such as increasing dividends, managing debt, fulfilling subsidiaries' capital requirements, acting swiftly for strategic purposes, or adequately being able to adapt to change. So you can polish the status quo all you like, but you'll still be left with a vehicle which fundamentally is not going to be fit for purpose for where we need to go. That's just my view, based on my professional experience, and you're welcome to disagree with me. And so too are any of our residents. But let's at least discuss it with them. And if you do disagree with me, at least base your disagreement on a business case. I'm always happy to change my mind, but I and anyone else need the facts to do that first. Your view down the line will be your view. But today, support Resolution 6A. to continue the development of the business case to ensure a transparent decision-making process, allow us to welcome thorough scrutiny, public consultation and input from all stakeholders on this, and demonstrate accountability and transparency in governance by allowing for a genuinely informed conversation with the people who actually own these companies. And that's all we're debating. To inform, discuss, and decide together, or not inform, not discuss, and not decide together. Support the former. Support Resolution 6A.
Councillor Moore.
All right, well, this is certainly going down to the wire, you might say. I have found this a very tough decision. My mind's changed a number of times over. I've learned a lot through this process, and obviously it's important to remind ourselves that these assets aren't ours, they belong to the people of Christchurch. Public say in our assets is critical, and it is the public that we as elected members are accountable to. Giving the public a say and going out and consulting on options is indeed the right thing to do. However, developing a business case on something that would give councillors less say, less accountability to the public is ultimately not the right thing to do. It is true that there isn't public appetite for asset sales, but the other issue here is actually trust. And we as a council do need to regain the trust of the people of Christchurch. So until we've rebuilt the trust, it's going to be very, very tricky to go out and tell the public that we've just given ourselves less control over our assets and allow decisions on asset sales in hundreds of millions of dollars without it coming to the council table, where we can be held accountable, the people we serve. And we can go out and say, trust us, it's all good, but until you have that trust, it's just not tenable. We have to rebuild it. So as we've heard, we can still go out and consult the people on our assets. And as for why would we choose to consult on enhanced status quo, well, these assets belong to the people of Christchurch, so we should and we need to. There is a need to look at doing things better with our assets, and we can and we will do things better, and that is with the enhanced status quo. So I stand by my decision a year ago to start on this process. I stand by it 100%, and I believe we'll be better off for it. As for throwing this in the bin now, well, last week council threw an independent hearings panel process in the bin. I didn't necessarily think that was right. Not allowing the building of housing in a city is something that will lead to higher rates too. But what we're looking at here is much more bin-worthy in my view. I also don't feel like it's going in a red bin. It feels like it's going in a yellow bin, because what we're getting out is an improvement, is enhanced status quo. So thank you to our yellow bin. So thank you to our yellow bins, another one of our great assets. I will not be supporting proceeding with the business case on active portfolio management, and I believe we should go and consult the people of Christchurch on enhanced status quo. And lastly, can we please leave the poor old stadium alone for 5 minutes? It's going to be a great asset to our city, and even Yanni's going to be grinning from ear to ear when it is open. But the points about paying for it are indeed valid. Thank you very much.
Councillor Donovan.
I wish to apologise to Councillor Moore, but I plan to mention the stadium because I think, as we all know, the stadium is the white elephant in the room that has contributed to the current situation we're at. So I think it's important to reflect on the past in order to understand where we're going in the future. Speaking of the past, I've got a weird sense of deja vu. I'm somebody that came of age in the 90s, to give you a sense of where I'm at. I'm 44. And at that time, we had a similar argument for asset sales, and neoliberal reform had really taken hold in New Zealand. The argument was, and it followed a similar playbook, is that we really needed to make our economic system more efficient. And the best way to do that was to remove assets from public control, and that we would have a better functioning system for all of our citizens. As we remember at this time, this process moved quickly and it had little public oversight. The playbook, led by the father of these reforms, Roger Douglas, stated, once this program begins to be implemented, don't stop until you have completed it. The opponents to this are much less accurate if they have to shoot at a moving target. And I feel like that has been the process so far. It's moved very quickly, and there has been very little public engagement with this process. And I also think we as elected members have struggled to keep abreast of some of the complexities of this, given that we've been forced to do this alongside a really complex and difficult process with a long-term plan. We all know what privatisation meant for many of our country's assets. We saw a significant uptick in inequality. We saw severe cuts to welfare. We saw a deregulation towards a more efficient labour market, which led to what we all know was a significant decline in labour rights. And we saw a really big shift in terms of wealth inequality in New Zealand. And this is the legacy we all have now and we're all faced with, and something that we have to consider when we're making decisions today. We have to look back to the past. So I think we've been focusing on the wrong questions. What are we trying to solve? Are we looking at reducing debt? Well, in which case, as some of the other councillors has mentioned, we should be honing in on the things that are creating debt. And one of those things, of course, is the stadium, and looking at how we can reduce costs, and also maybe looking at selling an asset such as the stadium. We all know that the rates impact of that particular decision is landing on us in the next 2 years, and we were aware of that when we made that decision last year. So, as I'm out of time, I just want to conclude with the thought that these assets are intergenerational, and it's my view that we need to be improving revenue, not looking at selling assets.
Right, so my chance for debate. The report from Northington Partners identified that CCHL's assets could deliver significantly more value. As such, option 2, enhanced status quo, is a logical progression. This would see CCHL lift returns by about $200 million over the next 10 years through stronger capital management and operational improvements. The consideration today, though, is whether Council would like CCHL to progress the business case on option 3, active portfolio management. In this scenario, we would remove all of our companies from the strategic asset register, give CCHL autonomy to transact and change the portfolio, allow CCHL to seek co-investment in our companies of up to $325 million to create a liquidity portfolio to pay off debt and invest the small remaining portion into equities. Although this may sound like a good proposition to some, I have huge reservations. First, it was my understanding that it was the capital requirements of Orion to expand its infrastructure for decarbonisation that was a core driver for faster debt repayment. However, yesterday we saw it turns out that their capital requirements are not as large as initially indicated. In fact, the enhanced status quo option results in increased dividends coming from Orion. So is there really such a large problem that needs to be solved? Co-investment, which is proposed, also has another name: selling assets and dilution of shares. This has been provided as a reason not to choose the enhanced status quo option, but is the core foundation of the active portfolio management option. That the same strategy goes by different names as it suits makes me very suspicious. The creation of a liquidity portfolio would mean that Council's investment would be subject to rises and falls in the market. I do not believe this guarantees a greater rate of return at all. In fact, we could lose our investments. That Council approval would be required for over 10% threshold of portfolio equity is a worry to me. Why would CCHL not seek to make changes to the portfolio in multiple smaller chunks of 5% or 9%? Maybe we could protect ourselves against that in a well-written investment framework policy, but in my view, the risks are too great. Removal of our companies from the strategic asset register would make it easier for parts or whole of our companies to be sold off without any requirement for consultation with Council nor the people of Christchurch. For companies and assets that are already at arm's length, I believe that makes them completely out of reach. Giving CCHL autonomy comes with risks, and I mean this with no disrespect. but can we be 100% sure that into the future the board members of CCHL and any chief executive will always act in the best interests of Christchurch? We have already seen a fraudulent CE of CCHL in very recent times. This mistake could happen again. Where would be the protection? I don't believe we can take any risks, and we shouldn't. The people of Christchurch are depending on us. Our companies are called council-controlled companies for a reason. Let us control our city's strategic assets and all the benefits that come from them. Let's not let them slip right through our fingers.
Okay, I'm last, am I? Right. I'd like to, in particular, agree totally with what Councillor Kewen said, even you had to stand up to say it. We need to continue and finish this and let the people decide. They will hear what we heard. One idea I had, and it did get shot down in flames a bit, but perhaps the Port Workers Union should own 10% of the port and give them some buy-in to what is their area. And I think myself that would be good. But sadly, we have got, and this will get me right in it, we have got some people around here with little or no business sense making a decision on continuing, right? Some of them have never run a business. They've never hired a person. They have no idea on where we are heading. We are going to be in the gun in 2028. CCHL told us yesterday we are going to hit the wall in 2028. Get ready. So I am supporting option 6A. So thank you.
Okay, everyone, thank you. Thank you. Right, we're going to move into the vote now.
A division.
It's obviously very emotional. So we're going to move items.
Do we have councillors online? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, we have Tyler Harrison Hunt online, and he did not want to partake in debate. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, my hand was up, but my video is not working.
Oh, so
apologies.
Yeah, sorry, Tyler. I had a message from you. You didn't want to. Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No worries at all.
Okay.
No stress. I think everything's already been said.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into the vote. We're going to put items 1 to 5 together, unless anyone has any adverse reaction to that. No, and we will do this as a division. So yes, so we have the mover and seconder already, the Mayor and Councillor Goff. So yeah, move into the division.
Sorry, clarification.
Sorry.
This is just on 1 to 5. We're going to do a division on 1 to 5?
Don't need division?
It's just 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll put 1 to 5. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Right, so now we'll move into Resolution 6A, which this one will be a division. Pardon? We've done 5. Okay. So 6A.
Madam Chair, yeah. Aye for 6A.
Right.
Nay for 6B.
Yep, which has been moved by the Mayor and Councillor Goff. Just start.
Councillor Kewen. Yes. Councillor McClellan.
No.
Councillor Henstock.
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
No.
Councillor Scandrett.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No.
Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Barber.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
No.
Councillor Fields,
No.
Councillor Johansson, Councillor Donovan,
No.
Councillor Goff.
Yes.
So we have 7 for and 8 against, so that is lost. So now we'll move into the foreshadowed motion, 6B. We're not finished yet, sorry. I wish we were. So we'll move into 6B, that we cease development of the business case. Should I put that as a division or move as one? A division?
This may be the opposite of what we just had.
Might be.
Councillor Peters,
No.
Councillor Fields,
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt,
Yes.
Councillor Coker,
Yes.
Councillor Donovan,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
Councillor Henstock,
No.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Goff,
No.
Councillor Johansson, Councillor Kewen, Councillor Barber,
No.
Councillor McClellan, Councillor Scandrett,
Yes.
the Mayor,
So we have 9 for and 6 against. That is passed. Okay, let's have a resolution to exclude the public, but then we're going to have a break anyway. So I'll move that we move into public excluded. A seconder,